Hi there, welcome to our trainer tip series. This is episode 2. Today we're going to be talking about mind-muscle connection. You may have heard of it. It's becoming a little bit more prominent in the fitness industry, more particularly for like specific muscle groups or those who are either bodybuilding or trying to gain strength, hypertrophy in the muscle. So this is a great topic. Definitely something that, not that you have to do, but it's a great way to kind of try and figure out how the body works and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that, some studies, and kind of tips or next steps on what you can do to try it out. But just know that this series doesn't necessarily need to be in any particular order. It's whatever you're interested in. So I'm Desiree, and Hannah's our other trainer on site at the USBC Fitness Center. Hopefully a lot of these topics are helping you and kind of keeping you, maybe giving you a nice little lunch break, something to listen to, and hopefully we can help in any way. Please reach out with any questions if you have any after we kind of talk about this. So resistance training is super important in all aspects of an exercise regimen or routine. So that's where you're kind of going to see that mind-muscle connection come into play, is when you're doing strength training. You may have heard of it before, like I said. Basically, the mind-muscle connection means we're referring to paying attention to a specific or being mentally aware of a specific target muscle that you are working. For example, chest fly or chest press or things like that. You're targeting the chest. So you're going to kind of focus your mind on that muscle specifically and how it's engaging, and you want to enhance that muscle specifically. So we'll kind of go into, like I said, a few studies here. It'll show how that has actually helped people gain strength in having that versus just doing an external cue where it's just kind of you're aware of your surroundings and the space you're in when you're lifting, getting that full range of motion. By any means is this meant to be controversial. It's just something that is, again, becoming more recognized and has some studies and EKGs that show that this has been successful. So just a few studies here that backs this up. Is in 2014, the study of Ohio University of Medicine researched that wrist strength in volunteers who had their arms in casts for 4 weeks have shown greater strength by focusing on lifting and doing wrist flexion when doing that muscle mind connection, and telling them to like physically strengthen the forearm there versus those who didn't. In a 2002 study from the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, researched those who concentrate on imagery of flexing their pinky finger for those who didn't. Again, they saw more strength in those who thought about and visualized flexing their pinky. And though both of these studies found greater strength from the subjects who focused on the mind-muscle connection, and while going to the gym and flexing your pinky may be super intriguing to you, or maybe wearing a cast for 4 weeks is super fun, you want to try it, doesn't necessarily mean that's kind of the focus. But there is one study that will kind of hit home for most of us and obviously make a little bit more sense and relate to when strength training. So the research evaluated focusing on specific muscle groups. So how it says chest and triceps when performing a bench press. So there's 2 muscles involved in this one. And improving the performance in those muscles. So the study subjects performed a bench press under 3 different conditions. 1 was without concentrating on any specific muscles. 2 was concentrating on contracting the pectoralis major muscles, and while concentrating on the tricep muscle as well. So under each of these 3 circumstances, they did the bench press at 20, 40, 50, 60, and 80% of their predetermined 1 rep max, meaning as heavy as what they can do in 1 rep. Results have shown that the activity did increase when lifters focus their attention on the 2 target muscles, but only up to the 60% of the 1RM. and you're maybe asking like why that is, it's just because the connection there is more focused when you're not doing a heavier set, because your attention when you're going super heavy is going to be focused on actually getting that weight up without dropping it on you or being afraid you won't be able to get it up, like more of that fear there. The concentration and the focus was manageable between the 20 to 60% 1RM, rather than, you know, having, it's more about the quality and the intensity at that point, and that focus with the mind muscle. You're just going to have better mind muscle connection at that point, with the up to 60%. So that's what the results kind of shown is concluded. It's the quality of the lift. So it's also kind of like listening to that, and like I said, it is better for doing maybe an average amount of reps and a lower weight and focusing on the quality. It's also been shown to, just a few more facts, just been shown to have greater results in the upper extremities versus the lower, just because we have more control of our upper extremities. Like they're more used for like fine motor skills like that, so versus the lower body. Though the lower body can be trained in time, you know, all of this takes time to do as well. Don't expect you to be an expert as soon as you go and try the mind muscle connection, and that's why I'll give you some tips as well. In addition, there were some conclusions stating that it's more successful, had greater results in a single joint movement versus complex movement. For example, a bicep curl versus a press. Let's see, I'll grab my weights here. So for example, if I'm doing a bicep curl, I'm only moving my bicep at my joint, single joint of the elbow. Whereas if I'm doing a press, I'm using my shoulder and my elbow to press up. So flexion and extension in both joints. So you're gonna see a greater result in just that bicep. I can just focus on squeezing my bicep muscle versus focusing on my shoulder, my tricep, my bicep, my lats. Not that those are all the main muscles being used, it's going to be mostly the shoulder, but you do have to focus on the other movements. So you have the concentric movement and the eccentric movement there. So maybe you should start trying out, it is recommended to try with those single joint movements as well. And that's going to same with lower body. So a squat versus a leg extension. Again, a squat, you're hinging at the hips and then your knees are moving. So those are two joints. Whereas a leg extension is just at the knee. Even though your hip is flexed, you're not moving at that point. It's just going to be the knee and you're extending to work the quad. So those are kind of some good things to know as well when you're before you begin. So basically, to conclude all of this and give you some recommendations is first, use external cueing. So, or I guess, let me say this in a different way. There are kind of two pieces to it. So like, if you do want to try it, I do recommend what muscle groups to use versus when. So like I was just saying. So one, the external cueing. So focusing on how the body is moving in space, getting that full range of motion. For heavy compound exercises is when you want to use that external cueing. So squats, deadlifts, presses, especially when you're trying to go heavy, in less than 8 reps at this point. And then when you want to use your mind muscle connection, you want to do those with isolated exercises where the goal is to target a specific muscle, bicep curls, cable flies. Again, you're not moving any others, just going to be focusing on the chest, leg extension, leg curls, things like that. So specifically, excuse me, how do you create or practically create that mind-muscle connection after kind of learning a little bit about what it is when you lift? So some tips to kind of foster that connection is one, move slowly, concentrically lift for 2 seconds and then pause for a second at basically that peak of that movement. So let's see here. So you're coming up 1, 2, 1 second, and then slowly coming down. same kind of position on the way down, taking your time for that. So the eccentric is the return of that movement. And then count, so it's basically a count of 3. So the more time under tension, the more the muscles have to work, and the more time you have mentally to connect to that muscle. And again, you have to tell your mind to really squeeze and engage and activate the bicep muscle. Just keep going to the bicep, because again, it's the upper body extremity, and it's a single joint. 2, lift with your eyes closed. Visualize. Something that we should practice even throughout our day when we're just sitting and relaxing and mentally escaping. Think about your body. Think about the space you're in. It eliminates all your visual distractions at this point, and it deepens that connection, mind to muscle. And it allows you to visualize the fibers. Think about the contraction. How does it feel? Think about the relaxing. And again, I would do this when you're not attempting something that relates to balance, or you do have balance issues, things like that. Maybe heavy loads, I would stay away from closing your eyes when you're doing something really extreme like that. 3, get to know your body, the muscles, and how they move. So for example, if you're going to go do a tricep extension and you don't know where your tricep muscle is, it's going to be hard to tell the mind to activate that muscle. So one great tip is to work with a trainer. I talk about mind muscle connection all the time with my clients. It's the perfect way to give my knowledge to them, and then at some point they'll be able to do it on their own and know and understand their body a little bit more. When you're doing a chest fly, you know, your chest is here. It says the name in it. What is that? It's the pectoral muscles, and things like that, and why that's beneficial. And again, triceps, back of the arm, a muscle that wraps around. Knowing where you're feeling it and how to connect the mind to that is super important. It's good. It can be challenging to focus on that muscle, but just do some research. Practice. Take a lot of practice to do those things. It's super important. So again, about 3 tips there. I do encourage you to try these techniques, enhance that mind-muscle connection at this point. And again, it's just something to try in your routine, and over time you might see some sort of benefit and some strength. Like I said, there are studies out there that do show this is helpful, but just be aware of what is your goal at the end of the day, what is important to you. Just a fun tip to provide you guys if you are not sure of what exactly the mind-muscle connection is at this point. So just small changes in your workout, change up your routine, especially since we're at home during these times. If you have equipment, get crafty, get creative, and try some different things at home that you may not have found in a gym. So it might lead to some big changes that you wouldn't even realize. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, if you have any questions about this or want to work with Hannah or I, please let us know. We'd be happy to help in any way we can. So thank you.